Hello, everyone. Welcome. Just waiting for Instagram to catch back up. But it's History Tea Time Chat Live. How is everybody? I hope you're all well, Colleen. Over there in California at 6 o'clock. Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing? It's a really dull day here. I hope you've got more. Hello, everyone. History Tea Time Chat Live. I hope you're all well. Today, it's a behind the scenes chat today because um because I've been head down in doing some incredibly cool stuff. I have, for example, literally just got off Zoom with James Clark, who I'm desperate to tell you more about, and his work. And you won't have to wait too long until you hear my interview with him. He wrote this book, which I keep talking about, Dissolution of the Monasteries, A New History. So I've just been speaking to him, so I'll tell you a bit more about that later. Been really busy with tour stuff and incredibly busy with the Georgian Online History Festival, which is coming up. Khan Hobbs 123 has bought me a badge on Instagram. Thank you so much. I am streaming live on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, as I am every Wednesday for this History Tea Time Chat Live. And usually I have a topic that I'm going to cover, but as I said, it's more of a behind the scenes today. I'm going to chat to you about some stuff that I think you will find interesting, might want to get involved in, because there's all this history community that we have is so wonderful. It's so wonderful. And we've got opportunities to get together to explore the history, and with people that aren't going to roll their eyes at you when you start talking about Henry VIII or Anne Boleyn. Thank you, Melissa, for the badge. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who supports me, either by buying a badge on Instagram, or Charlene has become a new member on YouTube. Thank you so much. You can also do super chats, I think, on well, you definitely can on YouTube. And if you do a super chat, I will pop your comment up on the screen. Facebook, you can also buy stars, apparently. I love the way they all have to come up with their own thing, which is basically the same thing and come up with a different name. Lisa in North Carolina, hi, how are you doing? David Rothstein Music. The thing about history is there's more of it every day, indeed, which is a good point of humility. We can't know everything, and just because it's already happened, certainly doesn't mean that we're any more qualified to know everything that happened. And the dissolution of the monasteries, like I was just talking about, the interview that I've just done, is actually a perfect example. I'll go into that in a bit more detail in a moment. Brian, yeah, hello, down there in Cornwall, wet. White Jennifer, thanks for the fun. Well, thank you for being here. It's lovely. It's very, very nice of you to spend your time with me. Oh, Laurie Lisa says it's wet in California. Oh, well, there you go. I'm no longer jealous of your sunshine for the moment. Anyway, I am. Do you know? I don't want to jinx it. Third time lucky tomorrow, hopefully. Keep your fingers crossed for me, everybody. I am on my way to Beaver Castle. I've told you over and over that I will speak to you about my visit to Beaver Castle, and then an overturned lorry had other ideas the first time, and the snow had other ideas the second time. So keep your fingers crossed for me that I will be there tomorrow, and I'll be able to talk to you about it next week. Becky, what's this about the dissolution? Well, hold on and I will tell you. Yeah. Oh, Maria is in Argentina. Hi, welcome. I always just think of it Ava Peron, which is really ridiculous, isn't it? Ava Peron and football is high up in my mind. A few rainy days over there in Poland. Mayfair Forest Witch. Hi, how are you? I must tell you before I forget about History After Dark. So any of you who aren't currently following us on History After Dark, if you like your history a bit spicy, then come along tonight. We live stream at 8:15 p.m. Sounds like a random time. Probably is quite a random time, but that's because Catherine One of our trio is a Pilates teacher, and she teaches until 8 o'clock. So 8:15, and we're there every Wednesday. We stream live on Instagram. We stream live on YouTube as history dot after dot dark on Instagram, and instead of the dots, the underscores on YouTube, because some buggers got the name first and aren't using it. But there you go. We talk about history after dark, because currently it is dark, and anyway, when we started it, it was dark, and now we're in our third year. I think we're coming up to our second anniversary, so we're almost going into our third year. And this year, 2023, is the year of the deceased git. So we are talking about people who didn't behave very well in history. Actually, no one really behaved very well, let's be fair. But we're having a look at certain ones tonight. We are talking about Isabella of France. So the wife of Edward II, deposed Edward II, reigned as regent in place of her son Edward III for a short while. She is our topic of conversation on History After Dark tonight. So please join us for that. David asks me, what British historical figure would I most like to interview? Don't know. Who would you like to interview, everybody? Who would be your suggestions? Who would I most like to interview? I mean, I think it depends what I want to ask them, whether I want to ask them about their time or whether I want to ask them what they make of our time. So if I was wanting to interview somebody about what do they make of what's happening now, I would probably go to somebody like Winston Churchill. I would like to know his take. If I was interviewing somebody about their own times, there's probably quite a few. I'd quite like to speak to Queen Anne Stuart, the last of the Stuart monarchs. I'd quite like to talk to Mary Tudor. What was she actually intending to do when she came to the throne in terms of the Counter-Reformation? How did she actually vision what was going to happen and what she wanted to happen? Thank you for the question. That's really interesting. Rebecca, Wednesdays are my new favourite day for exactly that reason. I presume. Yeah, it's very fun. It's very fun. Shnea Samel Lazari? Lazare. Thank you from Mumbai. British history always gives me an eerie deja vu feeling. Lisa, flooding and mudslides in California. Oh, goodness me. Prince Harry had to evacuate a few weeks ago. Didn't even know that. Amy never misses a History After Dark. Fantastic. Catherine would like to interview Anne Boleyn. Chelsea, Richard III. Yes. Interesting. Churchill, yeah. Who else we've got? Amy would like to interview Elizabeth Woodville. Oh, yeah. Love to know what kind of person she was, for sitting down and having a chat with. Some brilliant suggestions there. Some fantastic suggestions. Right. So so like I say, it's going to be a little bit more behind the scenes today, excuse me. Normally I've got a topic I want to particularly talk to you about because it's an anniversary or something. So last week we did Henry VIII and his jousting accident. Lisa, Queen Charlotte. Yeah. Princess Charlotte is another one who I'd have liked to have met. Oh, goodness. See, I knew I wouldn't be able to choose one person. I also, what else have we done? We've done King John's will and the Dane's skin. That was after my visit to Worcester Archives, of which I still need to do the editing. I don't know if some of you know this because you've been following me for a long time, but absolutely everything is in my hands. So from the recording and the script writing and the arrangement of visits right through to the editing and the uploading and the management of the social media channels, it's all me. So occasionally I get a little bit not behind, but I'm not as quick as I would be had I got a team. If you know anyone who wants some work experience, that would be great. Rebecca, I named my son Theodore for Theodore Roosevelt. He's my forever history crush. It'd be less interview and more awkward flirting on the bordering on harassment. Oh, that's a point. Yeah, this is probably more history after dark discussion. But who's your history crush? Who, like, is there somebody now that if they walked in the room, you just wouldn't be able to talk? Is there someone from history that you think that would that would also happen? I'd love to speak to them, but actually, in reality, there's no way you'd be able to get your words out. That'd be hilarious. That would be hilarious. So 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 I have just like I said a little bit earlier, come off Zoom interviewing James Clark. Now, anyone who's interested in Tudor history, which is generally most people, anyone who's interested, especially in the story of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn and Catherine of Aragon and the marriage breakdown of the first marriage in order for the second one and the Reformation and all of that, you need to read this book. Well, first of all, you need to watch the interview that I've just done with James Clark, which will be out. I'll tell you. No, I won't, because I've lost my sheet. Which is going to be out on the 12th of March. Not March, because that would be in history. 12th of April for patrons, and the week after that, whatever date that would make it, the 19th, would it, for general release. Either way, it's in. I don't think I've written down the right date there, but either way, in April, my interview with James will go live on YouTube. Patrons, you get it a week earlier. You get the extended version because I have the questions that you put forward for James at the end of the interview. And so anyone who doesn't know, any member of my Patreon, which is patreon.com/British history, get to submit questions. When I'm about to interview a historian, they get to submit their own questions. I put those questions to the historian at the end of our main interview, and then that extended interview is what patrons get. They also get it ad-free. Why not? Exactly. It's a bit easier to watch when you're not being interrupted. So I was right. So as I said, if you're interested in Tudors, you're interested especially in sort of Henry VIII Anne Boleyn story, you will have heard of the dissolution of the monasteries, of course. Now, I think the dissolution of the monasteries, as I now understand it, is so nuanced and so, if I want to put it in a nutshell, so different to what we are kind of normally led to believe if you're reading just about Tudor history. It's, I think, so complex. I mean, in a completely and utterly fascinating way, by the way. It's not heavy, but it's been a victim of having to summarize it down what was a complex, far-reaching, and all-encompassing change. It's like with the monasteries being dissolved, it's not just the religious houses, but they would have had, like, for instance, in Worcester, there was a hospital. It's now called the Commandery. The monastic hospital was run by or overseen by the cathedral and the monastic brothers there, but it was outside of the complex. Just so those all went as well. It's not just the actual religious houses that you might think of as the churches or the abbeys. So it was a huge change. And I think because it was so big and because the people that it affected, in terms of the population, the general population of the country, those records aren't either weren't made, weren't kept, or are too disparate. Maybe, I don't know, to have put into some kind of coherent sort of narrative. But also, let's be fair, people are more drawn to the higher level history, the politics that were going on, the religious, in this case, Reformation that was going on, the political landscape. So when we want to talk about the royalty and understanding Henry VIII's motivations. Now, this interview and the book will challenge your assumptions on the dissolution of the monasteries. So I don't know if anyone's a fast typer and you want to pop into the comments. What's the main narrative? What do you think Henry's reason for closing the monasteries was? Excuse me, I need to take a drink. What's your understanding? And while you're doing that, I'll just show you James's book. So don't let it put you off. I did, as usual, listen to the Audible version first. I've actually listened to the Audible version a couple of times now in bits. I sort of go back to certain bits, but this is the book. It's now available in paperback. David saying money. Yeah, that's the reason. That's one of the things we're told. Henry wanted money from the monasteries. Yeah, so this is the book. Don't let it put you off that it's so big, because it is a page turner, and the last so far is I haven't got to the end of it, the index. So it's about 600 and something pages long. No, it's not. I'm telling a fib. About 540 pages long, something like that. So that much is index. So you've only got that much to read. It's so good though. It's so good. And like I say, you could start with watching the interview that I'm doing with James, which will be out in April. And if you're a patron, of course, you get that a week early. So who else we've got? David. Yeah, David said money. Caroline, reduction of political threat, in that people have hidden or been hidden in monasteries for centuries. Yeah, really interesting. And also, it's been put across as a sort of a fait accompli from quite early on, that there was this this plan already thought through, this intention to close all of the monastic houses. Lisa, to rule without input from Rome. Yeah. Rebecca, money, and to further discredit and diminish, the Catholic faith. Yeah. And I think the money one not overrides, it sort of oversees this idea that we've been given, that that there was this idea in the first, from the early onset of this idea that every monastic institution would be closed. And in fact, right up until the end, right up until when there were only a few left, those few thought that there was a way forward, that they were going to be able to negotiate a way to remain open. They did not believe still, even by Christmas 1539, and they were all closed by Easter 1540, that there would be that every one of them would have gone. And that's because, I don't want to spoil it for you, but let's go into it. There's so much to know, but I'm not going to spoil any of it. That is because, as James explains it in the interview I've just done with him, which I can't wait for you to see. By the way, put some time aside or watch it in snippets, because it's almost 2 hours long, honestly. And I could have spoken to him for so much longer. It was incredible. Oh, hello, Sherry. How are you doing in Virginia? How are you? She's booked onto a tour. So Henry's idea from the beginning, and I say Henry meaning sort of the collective of maybe Henry and Cromwell, Henry and his closest confidants, was to reform the monasteries of the country. And before Henry put himself as head of the church. Hello, Debbie. How are you doing in New Jersey? Before Henry VIII puts himself as head of the church in England, the monastic institutions are not answerable to him, because they usually have a mother house on the continent. Perhaps they're answerable to the Pope. But there's a separation of church and state. With Henry putting himself as the head of the church in England, of course, he is now head of state and head of the church. And as head of the church, he is head of these religious houses. And sort of reformation, no, that's probably going to be the wrong word, but there was always a audit, let's say, of monasteries that perhaps couldn't sustain themselves, and there would be closures. So this has always been, thank you, Maria, she likes my hair today. There's always been there had always been, excuse me, an assessment of the viability, like you would with a business, the viability of a house, of an institution. And so smaller ones that weren't paying their way effectively, couldn't support themselves, might be closed, and the funds and the monks move somewhere else. And that way they have to be able to sustain. And the vision is always for these institutions, they're going to carry on. They're going to carry on and carry on and carry on. And so we must keep them viable in order for them to be there for future generations. Let me just say a few hellos. Crazy Artist Lady, hello in Ontario, Canada. Yes, you have a lot of snow, I believe. I love the emojis for explaining what weather you've got. My emoji at the moment would be the rain cloud. Well, just cloud. Ugh. Come on, spring. I told you before, I'm solar powered. Debbie, the church didn't want to lose money either. No. And Henry, so there was a few things. So in the beginning, so Henry puts himself as the head of, well, he does put himself as the head of the church in England. So there's a bit of an audit. It's a bit like, a new CEO has taken over. What is it that I'm looking after here? What is it that I'm running? And you have an assessment of the houses in terms of their income. Can they sustain themselves? And smaller ones are closed. These can't sustain themselves. It's probably better that we just consolidate into larger houses. Also, then you have a fewer number. So you have, in theory, a more malleable, a more loyal, a more easy to influence set of still powerful institutions in your country. And Henry wanted this. Henry wanted the bolster of his royal, his royal influence, of his stature, to be bolstered by these institutions. So the idea was that they would become quite a supporting force for the crown. So how did you go from having that as Henry's idea to a full-scale closure of all the monastic houses? And James goes into it over 540 pages. It's incredible. It is absolutely fascinating. I would recommend this book really highly. Dissolution of the Monasteries: A New History by James Clark, because it is nuanced. Debbie's saying there the church didn't want to lose their money either. No, there's so many different elements to it. So yeah, the church, there was plenty of these places that wanted to work with the king and be that support for him. They didn't want to be closed, of course. And it seemed like an opportunity. It seemed like the king wanted a critical friend. And but of course, Henry, the paranoid person that he was, and increasingly so over this really quite short, we think of it as a 4-year period, 1536 to 1540, where the religious houses were closed, but in fact it's sort of mid 1536 to Easter 1540, so it's shorter than 4 years. Over that time he becomes increasingly paranoid, and that you'll hear James give the full explanation for that in my interview with him, but that is really the thing that toppled the idea of reforming the monasteries into closing them. Maria, my dissolution of the monasteries came and and on top of it being a hefty tomb that's not too portable, I'm gutted because the writing is teeny and inaccessible. Oh, well, yeah, it is quite small. It is quite small. We're going to have to see about something. I don't know. Can you get Audible? Maybe you can follow it along. I really struggle with my eyesight, which is why I'm a big Audible fan. But then I can't help but have the book as well. Richard's in Barcelona. Hello. So, yes. So where was I? Dissolution Monastery. So it is really, it is nuanced and it's complex, but also even if you did want to summarize it, you would find when you understand it more. Now I'm hoping I understand it more. That it was just not what we're led to believe, and it's certainly not a story which is an appendage to Henry VIII's and Anne Boleyn's story. Yeah, Rebecca says Dr. Cam would recommend the reedy thing that she uses. That, yeah, I'm also blanking the name of as well, Rebecca. Maria, we'll ask Kat what she uses. Hello, Mia, how are you? So thank you everyone for joining me. And thank you everyone who's bought badges on Instagram. So if you want to support me in doing these free live streams, then you can buy badges on Instagram, stars on Facebook, super chats on YouTube. That would be fabulous. Maria, think of checking out to see if it's available on Audible. Yep. Yeah, I really do. Yeah, do. Or can, Rebecca, thank you. Or can. Maria, so that's what Dr. Cat uses as well, and it scans a page and reads it out for you. So I do have some thank yous actually, please, that I just need to do. Jenna has joined my Patreon, and Charlene has become a YouTube member. So thank you ever so much. And members of my Patreon, we have our first book club meeting on Sunday. So our current book in book club that we will be talking about on Sunday, sorry, it's a little bit blurry on Instagram, is Gareth Russell's book about the Titanic, the Ship of Dreams, and the sinking of the Titanic and the end of the Edwardian era. And he loves his long titles, but the Edwardian era part of it is really key actually in this book, because you learn so much about the Edwardian era. Colleen's in my Patreon and will be there. I don't know if you found that you learned a lot about the actual life and times of that era, and also Anglo-American relations as well, which I found really fascinating. It's also the start, if any of you have watched my interview with Gareth about the Titanic, I asked him specifically about the aftermath. I was fascinated by why, when the Titanic wasn't actually, and unfortunately, our biggest peacetime shipping disaster, why it's the one that's captured the imagination so much. And in my interview with Gareth, we go into this obviously in far more detail. It's about 45 minutes long. It's available on YouTube. But there was an actress on board, for instance, and she was immediately involved in the production of a film about the sinking. It gets captured in a emerging celebrity time era, a time of movies and press intrusion, effectively, into the lives of people that have been through something which is going to sell papers or movies. And this is also where you get a lot of the myths about the Titanic coming from, sort of, stories which become better in the telling. Colleen, there were so many fascinating people on board. There really were. And something that you really get attached to, I found, as I was reading the book. And you get to the sinking part of the ship in the book and you think, please let that person, you've kind of got an inkling that surely that person, hopefully, survive because we have their story, but that isn't always the case. It's their stories told by someone else afterwards. Maria, I need to rewatch the interview with Gareth to refresh it in my mind before our Zoom meeting. Yes, so our book club meeting is on Zoom, so we all get to see each other and chat. We're all over the world, so it's going to be fabulous. I can't wait. It's our first one, and the book stack behind me, which you can't see on Instagram, sorry, you can see it on YouTube and Facebook. They are our other books for the book club. Our next one, so after we finish with Gareth's on Sunday, our next book is Dr. Estelle Perronc's Blood, Fire and Gold, which I've spoken about before as well because I love it. It is the dual biography of Elizabeth I and Catherine de Medici. Oh, can't wait to get my teeth into that one either. So we've got fabulous, of course, books to we're not going to read non-fabulous ones over this year. Amy, I've been to the Titanic exhibition. We got given boarding passes when we arrived with real passenger names on, and we found out we had all died at the end of the exhibition. Oh, not one of you had survived. That seems that's tragic. The description of the sinking from eyewitness testimony and multiple eyewitness testimonies is really, I find it quite harrowing. I had to be a bit careful not to read it too close to bedtime. I have to be frank. Maria, still waiting on Estelle's book. Goodness me, it's like we need to order your books about a year in advance. Joanne, yes, good point. Check out the Titanic discussions on Gareth's single malt history podcast. So Gareth Russell, who's also my tour historian. So when I go on tour, Gareth is on every tour I do. He's with me in May, he's with me in June, he's with me in September, and he's with me next May as well. But he has a fantastic podcast called Single Malt History. And yes, as Joanne points out, he's got some great discussions about the Titanic on there as well. Sherry has just received her Blood, Fire and Gold yesterday. Fantastic. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to book club. So if you want to be in book club and you're not already, you can join me and Sherry and Maria and Colleen, and we are going to be talking. Gail, I think, is in there somewhere. And you can join us for book club. It's about every 8 weeks, I think I worked out. We have the dates for the year already, and so you can do that by joining us on patreon.com/British history. Oh, it's very exciting. So yeah, so Jenna has done that. So welcome, Jenna, and Charlene as well for YouTube. Now, I explained that I haven't gone into any particular event in history this week because I've had so much organisation to be doing around tours. So we have 3 tours this year, and the Anne Boleyn tour, which happens every May, is on sale for 2024. So I've been doing all of that and taking bookings. Happy to say we're 3/4 full for next May already. So if you're interested in doing the Anne Boleyn tour, please don't wait because you could be waiting a very long time. We also have, though, the Private Life of Anne Boleyn, which is this year, this June into July, so 29th of June till the 4th of July. I apologise for it being the 4th of July to all you coming from America. But that won't be running again. So please get on that if you are interested, if you think that sounds cool. And I know Joanne is thinking about this, but we have the Elizabeth I and Mary Queen of Scots tour in September, which is almost full as well. And because that's not enough, if you can't make it on tour with me, that doesn't have to be it, because as well as doing these live shows, I have events as well. And the next one is a week on Friday, and it's the Georgians. We have the Georgians Online History Festival. And the talks, we've got 6 historians. Tracy Borman. I've done a trailer for this actually on YouTube. I'll share it in a little while. So there's little snippets of each of the talks. We've got Tracy Borman, Anne Stott, Illyri Lynn, Antonia Keeney, Gareth Russell, and Dr. Cat Marchant, they have all done talks around the Georgians and the Georgian period. Tracy is talking about Henrietta Howard, who she came up actually in one of our History After Dark sessions when we were talking about George II. She was a mistress of George II, and she has the most fascinating life story. You cannot have any more tenacity than this lady. And actually, she was so interesting. This was Tracy Borman's first book, was on Henrietta Howard, and she's giving away a signed copy of her book for we have a free prize draw as part of the History Festival. So everyone with a ticket gets put into a free prize draw. One of the prizes is a signed copy of Tracy's book on Henrietta Howard. You can also win. Caroline, you must be exhausted. Remember to get some sleep. Do you know what? I am actually. I am, but I did get a good night's sleep last night, so it's okay. I'll keep trying periodically to get just one of those massive nights sleep. Yeah, so in the free prize draw, you can also win the price of your ticket back. You can win a £15 or $15 or whatever equivalent it is in your currency Amazon voucher. What else do we have? Well, those three things at least. I can't remember what else we have in there. We also have, so in terms of talks, Anne Stott is talking about Princess Charlotte. Now, Princess Charlotte, she came up briefly before, didn't she? She was the only legitimate granddaughter of George III. So George III had got multiple sons, and only one of them had produced a legitimate child, and that was George, who became who became the Prince Regent, who became George IV. His only daughter, legitimate daughter, was Princess Charlotte. And Princess Charlotte, she only lived to the age of 21. She died in childbirth, or just after following childbirth complications, after a stillbirth, and she was deeply mourned on the scale of, what we remember the grief about Princess Diana. Princess Charlotte, the level of grief about Princess Charlotte was exactly the same. Colleen, where does my energy come from? I don't know. I don't know, because I fit in CrossFit as well, as much as I can as well. Need to do that, otherwise my back will cave. So Anne Stott is talking to us about Princess Charlotte. Fascinating figure, someone everyone should really know about. Her death caused a crisis in terms of the succession, because, like I say, she was the only legitimate grandchild of George III. She's 21. She's already an adult, so you can kind of imagine how old her uncles are getting, and none of them have got legitimate children. She goes, obviously her baby boy, unfortunately, is stillborn. 2 generations are wiped out in one go, and only sort of the fully adult, middle-aged children of George III survive. Are still around, who can take over the throne. And of course, her Charlotte's father does, as George IV, and then his brother as William IV. But that's what sparks off this really funny, in a way, marriage and marriages and bids to have legitimate children, which results in the birth of only one other legitimate grandchild, and that was Princess Victoria, who became Queen Victoria. So without Charlotte's death, we wouldn't have had Victoria, which I've got a feeling Dr. Cat would have been quite happy about. You'd have to listen to History After Dark if you want to know Cat's views on Queen Victoria. So we have Anne Stott talking about Princess Charlotte. Then Illyri Lynn, if any of you been to somewhere like Kensington Palace and seen their amazing exhibitions on the clothing that they have there, Diana, I saw Diana's clothing there. There was Queen Elizabeth's and Princess Margaret's clothing there. If you ever saw the Bacton altar cloth, the dress of Elizabeth I. If you've ever seen that on display, it's Illyri Lynn, who was the textiles curator at Historic Royal Palaces. She is doing a talk on dressing the Georgians, which is really fascinating. You've got to remember the Georgian period is this time of the mantua, that ridiculously wide skirt that that women at court had to wear, and you were not allowed to wear the same outfit twice. And each outfit could probably feed a village for a month. You know, in terms of the cost of them, they're incredible. But Illyri talks all about the fashions at court. Antonia Keeney, who is the social historian at Blenheim Palace, has done a fantastic talk. She's entitled it Saints, Sinners and Saints, Sinners and Scoundrels, the colourful characters of Blenheim Palace's past. It's like a real life Bridgerton. So Mayfair Forest, which says, somebody asked earlier which historical figure you would want to interview. How about if you could put someone from history on a polygraph lie detector test? So I think there is an alarming number of them who are probably quite open about their intentions and probably should have had more forethought, humility, character, intelligence to not have been quite so so open. But I'll have a think about that one. Colleen, can you imagine having to help you get dressed every day? Yes, well, this is why they had, we know they had dressing servants, don't we? Because there's no way you could have got it into it yourself. Marion, do you have any thoughts on why all of George III's sons had all those mistresses when he and his wife Charlotte had been a devoted family life? I think they probably had the means and lack of discipline. I don't know enough about the day-to-day sort of upbringing they would have had to be able to probably assess that. Colleen, Henry could probably pass one. Yeah, see, Henry VIII could probably pass a lie detector test because he, for all his abominable wishes, he was pretty much open about them. I suppose you could take a particular time of someone's life and ask them their intentions, which may have come out later, and we know them because we're looking back. Yes, living near collective life. Can you give an overview of how the online history festival works? I've never participated in something like that. I know about the talks. Are they shown at specific times or watched at leisure? They are both. Thank you for that question. So the event is on Eventbrite. So I will, in fact, I can put up the link on Instagram. No, not on Instagram. Sorry, everybody. That's in the bio on YouTube and Facebook at the moment. So the talks are released at particular times. Once they're released, though, they're available until the end of May. So May the 31st. So if you can't make any of the talks at the time, or some of the talks, it really doesn't matter. You can catch up at your leisure. You can rewatch. Yeah, so you can rewatch them. You can watch them at a later date. Mayfair Forest, which I live in a really small apartment. It's only practical really to wear leggings, excuse me. But if I did live in a castle, I would definitely want to wear an extravagant gown. Yeah, you want to flounce about. And you've got staircases to descend and look regal around. Debbie, yeah, Henry VIII wasn't lying. He was just despicable. Oh, Doug, good suggestion. Richard III. Richard III and Henry VII. Interview them about the princes in the Tower. That would be good. Debbie agrees. Debbie's staircases to fall down. There is having worn Tudor gown that wasn't quite to my height because I'm only short. There is definitely a technique to making sure you don't trip forward over your skirts. Definitely. Definitely. So, yeah, so all of these talks that I'm talking about, they go live but well, I can tell you. So the Tracy Borman talk will go live at 8:30 p.m. on Friday the 24th. And the Anne Stott's talk about Princess Charlotte goes live at 9:30 that night. Then the following day, Saturday the 25th of March, we have Illyria Lynn at 4 o'clock talking about dressing the Georgians. We'll be talking about those Mantua Gigantica gowns. 6 o'clock, Antonia Keeney is talking Saints, Sinners and Scoundrels, specifically about the characters from Blenheim Palace's past. Really fascinating. And then the following day, Sunday, now this is our finale day. We have Dr. Katrina Marchant, talking about bare knucklers, the world of Georgian bare knuckle boxers, which is fabulous. Honestly, it's fantastic. I'll post the trailer after this, and you can watch. And there's a little bit of Kat's talk, which there's 2 little bits actually out of Kat's talk, which is just brilliant. Brilliant. That goes live at 2 o'clock on the Sunday. Like I say, they're all available to the end of May from the points that they go live. 4 o'clock. So our final talk is from Gareth Russell. It's the abolitionists, aristocrats and adventurers, Georgian Ireland and the birth of the United Kingdom. You don't currently know what you don't know. Watch Gareth's talk and you will find out a whole plethora of bits you didn't even sort of know you didn't know. It's really good. And then at 7 o'clock on the Sunday evening, we have a live historian panel where you can come along and put your questions to them in the comments. If you know you're not going to be around for that Q&A, then you can submit your questions early. If you send them to office@britishhistorytours.com, that will get through to me and Catherine, and we can put the questions to the historian panel. And then we finish with the bring your own bottle and nibbles closing quiz. Now, this is just for fun. Although we do the free prize draw actually as well at this point. That's 8:30 on the Sunday night. So I suppose if you're going to make anything live, the historian panel and the closing event, the quiz, is the most fun. The bits to come along to. And we can and at that point, sorry, I'd do the free prize draw. So there's loads that you can get on the weekend, and also keep you'll get the links and you can follow it up. The tickets I'm going to keep on sale until the end of the Sunday, so even if you haven't managed to get your ticket by the time we go live on this Sunday, then you can join us for those and then grab hold of the talks. But the tickets will close for sale on Sunday the 26th of March. It is a great lineup. So proud. Now, let me give you a little exclusive. I need a drink first. About what's going to happen for the next one. Yes, please, living an eclectic life. Do register today. It's on, let me tell you, it's if you go to www.thegeorgians2023.eventbrite.co.uk and you can buy your ticket there. You can also, if you missed the Stuart Online History Festival, you can buy that as an extra bundle, and you can watch all of those talks from the Stuart History Festival as well. Maria, it's next weekend, right? It is, yes, the 24th till the 26th of March. I have a save the date for you as well. Oh, just poured water down myself. Autumn's Online History Festival. This is an exclusive just for you guys here. We are doing the Tudors. The Tudors Online History Festival will be from the 17th till the 19th of November. Pop it in your diaries. When the tickets go on sale for that, there will be a small number of early bird tickets. So if you're members of my Patreon, if you're members of my Patreon, you get a 10% discount on your tickets for these events anyway, regardless of when you buy the tickets. But yes, if you sign up to my Substack, which is my free weekly newsletter, then you will hear about the tickets going on sale, and obviously can hopefully grab one of the early bird ones. Sherry says the Stuart Summit was terrific. Thank you very much. Yes, so if you did miss that, it's worth having. Well, I think it's very worth it, and Sherry thinks so too. It's worth having a look at adding that as an extra bundle so that you can watch this. We had 7 talks for that one. That was incredibly interesting. It all is, isn't it? And this is, I don't know, it's the history of people at the end of the day, and people are endlessly fascinating. So yeah, it's going to be great. So we are 50 minutes in. I would ask you to keep your fingers crossed that I will go to Beaver Castle tomorrow. 3rd time lucky. Hopefully I will get there and I'll be able to tell you about Beaver Castle next week. If you're members of my Patreon and I do get there, then you will get extra photos, or you'll get photos of my visit tomorrow pretty quick after my visit. And that's about it for today, I think. But thank you all so much for joining me today. If you're around for History After Dark tonight, you can join myself, Cat Marchant, Dr. Cat, who's reading the past on YouTube, Catherine Brooks, the historical collaborator. You can join us 3 on Instagram and YouTube tonight. History After Dark. We're talking Isabella of France, the wife of Edward II. Edward II, if you remember, is the one who was imprisoned in Berkeley Castle. There's the myth around how he died with the red hot poker. He's buried in Gloucester Cathedral, which many of you will have seen I was at last week. Living Eclectic Life says, love all the photos. Yeah. Yes. I try and give you a bit. To be honest, when I go somewhere, it's a good job I don't have a traditional camera anymore. It's a good job we have phones, because I could take 700 photos of somewhere I've been before. So Jules says, the she-wolf of France. Yes, but what I want to know is when she was called that, because the she-wolf of France was actually, as far as I understand it, a nickname given by Shakespeare to Margaret of Anjou, the wife of Henry VI. And then that term applied to other queens who had basically overstepped the mark. I mean, to be fair, Isabella, she deposed her anointed king, her husband, and served as regent to a point for her son Edward III, to a point where he decides to overthrow her and kill her lover. So yeah, it's not as, it's, I think there's sort of an inclination that if a woman did something, then we must all sort of think that it was for the best and she was maligned somehow. This woman oversaw a coup. So we're going to have a very, very interesting conversation about her tonight, I am very sure. Maria, is that the castle that's the mental spelling, but it's pronounced Beaver? Yeah, the castle I'm going to, I'm touching wood, is pronounced Beaver, but it's spelt Belvoir, Belvoir. So if you can't make History After Dark tonight, but you are a member of my Patreon, I will see you Sunday for book club. The link is in Patreon, it's on our page, so just click on it at the time that we're going live, and I will let you into the room and I'll see you there. Everyone else, if you're here next Wednesday 1 o'clock, we will be talking the execution of Cranmer and hopefully Beaver Castle. All right, everybody, have a great day. And hopefully I'll see you very, very soon.